By the year 2005, we'd come a long way since the days of WWF Warzone on the PlayStation. The SmackDown series came into play after the WWF and THQ teamed up, and a lot of really good games came out throughout the years like Know Your Role and Here Comes the Pain. And I wondered if we'd ever see another game with such greatness. Unfortunately, in 2005, the WWF wasn't exactly what it was in the late 90s and early 2000s. So how would a video game reflecting upon that time really translate? Well, let's take a look at SmackDown vs. Raw 2006 for the PlayStation 2. The roster in 2005 wasn't fantastic, but there were a lot of veterans still here, and a few up-and-coming stars that were starting to make some noise. There are some useless inclusions here like Snitsky and Eugene, but then again, they were on TV at the time, so it only makes sense to include them. Plus, we have to have somebody to job to us, right? With the poor selection of divas offered up in Day of Reckoning 2, I was worried that SVGR 06 would follow suit, but they did not disappoint. They included 7 divas here, and all of them are worthy of their spot. There's also a rather large selection of legends here. And I know a lot of people were angry with the fact that Hulk Hogan took up 3 roster spots, but as a longtime NWO-ite, I was extremely pleased to see his Hollywood persona make it into the game. And there's no lack of arenas either, everything from the basics to monthly pay-per-views and specialty arenas like WrestleMania 9 and ECW. And these arenas, along with the wrestlers, look really good. The crowd is now almost exclusively filled with 3D models, which brings more life to these arenas. A cool addition is how the game will sometimes jump to the announce table camera angle, where you can view the ring from just off the stage where the announcers are calling the action. I really don't have any complaints about this game visually. Everything here looks top-notch. As far as control goes, you will for the most part feel at home here, and should have a little trouble picking up where you left off with the previous title. There are a few subtle differences, like the Irish whip for example. It used to be if you wanted to send your opponent into the ropes, you simply tapped the circle button without pressing any directional buttons. But here they changed that due to all of the grapple options, which we'll get into shortly. An Irish whip is performed by pressing both triangle and circle at the same time. This was a bit of an annoyance at first, simply due to habit, but you'll get used to it. And speaking of Irish whip, there's a power Irish whip that can be performed by holding triangle and circle, and will cause your opponent to either flip over the top rope or hit the turnbuckle with much more force than normal. The grapple system is set up with 2 fixed grapples plus 3 various grapples depending on the wrestler you select. Every wrestler is equipped with a clean or dirty grapple and a submission grapple. The other 3 grapples are selected from a list of 7 and consist of power, speed, technical, brawler, martial arts, luchador, and old school. This doesn't do much but group the moves into categories that make for quicker wrestler creation. The clean and dirty system from the previous game has been replaced with a momentum system, very similar to what we saw in the N64 THQ titles. This meter is filled by successfully performing moves, reversals, and taunts. When it fills and starts blinking, you can choose to perform a finisher now or store it away for later, but you can only store 1 finisher at a time. The only strange thing here is when you perform a finisher while your momentum is maxed, it applies this black and white slow motion filter to the finisher that I don't really care for. Maybe it can be turned off somehow, I really don't know, I never really tried too hard to get rid of it. The stamina system is a necessity in the progress to become a more realistic experience, but I'm not really sure realistic is what I want here. You'll find your wrestler getting tired out from just about anything, including taunting. Eventually, you'll be handicapped to the point where you can't move until you regain some stamina. Regaining stamina can be done by pressing and holding select while your wrestler is in a ready position and not taunting, moving, or performing any moves. This can be time-consuming and frustrating at times, especially with larger superstars like the Big Show who lose stamina a lot quicker than smaller wrestlers. Along with standard difficulty options, there's also the advanced options where you can really finely tune the way the AI performs. You can control everything from the frequency of reversals to how often your opponent will attempt a finisher. I've never really gotten too deep into this feature, but it's really cool to have. The amount of game types this title offers is pretty incredible. Let's start with the massive amount of match types. Along with standard matches, there come plenty of specialty matches. The TLC match returns, and once again you can smash your opponent with chairs, slam them through tables, and beat them senseless with ladders. This is a match best played in tag form in my opinion, as it just gets so chaotic that no matter if you're winning or losing, it's still really entertaining.
Man, look at these superstars.
The hardcore match has been around since the days of WWF Warzone. Anything goes here, no countouts, lots of weapons, and, well, more weapons. There are some weapon moves that require a usable finisher, and while these are cool, I'm pretty sure that they were included in the previous titles as a regular weapon grapple move, which makes little sense to me. The table match is another staple in the series, and it operates just like those of the past. Only here I feel like the AI is a little bit more likely to reverse moves, resulting in a little bit more of a challenge. The ladder match has come a long way since the series started. It used to be a very fast arcade-style pace, but by this point it had slowed down to a bit of a more realistic pace, especially with the addition of the stamina meter. And the ladder grapples are extremely fun to pull off. The cage match is another classic that's come a long way, but something that's always rubbed me the wrong way in the WWE is that somewhere along the line they decided to add a door to the cage that a wrestler can exit through with a simple call to the ref. Well, they added that here to the game. The match that The Undertaker made famous is still around and still a fan favorite. This is one of those matches that I always make sure to dive into when I boot this game up. Whether it's rubbing my opponent's face into the steel or pulling off suicide dives that benefit only my opponent. The Hell in a Cell is definitely one of my all-time favorites.
The FU! He just drove his opponent straight into the ground!
The Elimination Chamber has remained pretty much untouched since it made its debut, but there's not really a lot more you can add to this match type. Nevertheless, this is a great mode for multiplayer. And speaking of multiplayer, the Royal Rumble is my favorite match type to play with friends. The returning ring out meters make things harder than previous titles in the series, but it's still possible to eliminate weaker opponents in one shot. The Iron Man match typically runs an hour. Within the time limit, the wrestler with the most pinfalls wins. Here you can choose an hour if you'd like, or you can bring it all the way down to 10 minutes if you're like me and have a short attention span. First Blood mode is pretty much just a hardcore match where the first wrestler to bleed loses. This was a pretty popular match at one point in wrestling, but with the no blood rules in the current product, we won't be seeing this match type anytime soon.
Swing it. Man, what a chest. Well, there you have it, Cole. He did it.
The Backstage Brawl and Parking Lot Brawl return with the addition of the Bar Brawl. The Bar Brawl should be the coolest, but it's probably my least favorite out of the three. I mean, it's an awesome concept, but I feel like they kept it a little too simple. With the interaction in the other two brawl stages, I was expecting a little more here, but it is always fun watching your opponent get hit in the head with a pool ball. And speaking of the pool table, sometimes performing diving moves from it can get a bit glitchy. The Backstage Brawl features a similar setting to the one seen in the previous title, complete with the interactive roll-up door. In fact, plenty of areas are interactive, which should really keep one entertained for quite some time here. The parking lot brawl might be my favorite of the three. Almost everything you see is interactive, from the cars to the limo to the giant 18-wheeler which you can jump from. But due to the tight quarters they provide, it could lead to some botched diving attacks, which is really a shame. This stage also features a special finisher that can only be performed with 2 specials and near the rear door of JBL's limo. The Fulfill Your Fantasy match is all new, but it's pretty much just a bra and panties match, I think. I'm not really completely sure how this match type works, but I know that I stripped my opponent down to her bra and panties, filled up this little meter here, and then hit her in the head with a pillow for the win. So, yeah. And last but not least is the all-new Buried Alive match, which is reminiscent of the casket match we saw years ago. The point of this match is to throw your opponent into the casket and close the lid for the win. This is another match type that features a match-specific finisher. I should mention that certain matches like the Fulfill Your Fantasy and Buried Alive are pay-per-view specific matches, so if you want to have one at, say, Monday Night Raw or WrestleMania, well, too bad. GM mode is an all-new game type to the series. You select the brand you wish to run, and from there you can participate in a draft or just continue with the current roster. After you choose who you want to be the holder of each title on your show, you can go on to run your brand. From here it's like an advanced version of create a pay-per-view mixed with a season mode. You'll put together matches and promos and even choose to play or watch the matches on your card. You have access to emails, reports, financial information, and even weekly ratings of your show. And while it is a fun way to pass the time, it feels like there's a little something missing. And speaking of create a pay-per-view, it's back but really hasn't changed since the last game. The season mode spans 2 years, but for some reason can still feel kind of short. This is definitely a great season mode, and right off the bat you'll notice that unlike the previous title, the wrestler you select can actually speak out loud. And these cutscenes aren't cheesy with horrible acting like before. These are actually really entertaining to watch.
I have to ask you, after that hard-fought match, with all of the blood, sweat, and tears you left in the ring, how does it feel to lose the World Tag Team titles and let William Regal down like that?
How does it feel, Coach? How does it feel? How do you think it feels?
Because of the voiceovers, not every single wrestler on the roster can be selected for season mode, but most of them can. The season is broken up into different chapters, so the story branches quite a bit, but ultimately the focus is on winning the championship at WrestleMania. You will be occasionally offered an option here or there throughout the season mode, and while these options don't change things too much, they will let you select the direction in which you wish to move forward. As you move your way through the season mode, you'll earn cash for each match, which can be spent in the WWE Shop. Here you can purchase items like WWE Legends, belts, and alternate attires. The shop is located within the locker room, where you can look at wrestler attributes, championship titles, and check out the list of the returning challenge mode. Season mode is a lot of the reason why fans purchase a WWE game, and if you bought this game just for the season mode, I'd say you probably got your money's worth, but there's so much more here. I usually purchase a game for the Create a Wrestler mode, as that's where I spend most of my time. While not a lot has changed here, it feels worlds better than the previous title. SmackDown vs. Raw featured my least favorite Create a Wrestler mode of any other game in the series. The wrestlers here don't look like they were plucked straight from the Legends of Wrestling series. And the pre-made faces even feature real-life wrestlers like Eddie Guerrero. The biggest feature here is the addition of items that are not crazy glued to the wrestler. Like, look here, these are actual earrings hanging off of the ear of the wrestler, not pasted to the side of his head like before. They really did good by me here. I mean, like I said, I use this feature a lot, so I was definitely satisfied. Create an Entrance is all new and attempts to work like the WWE games on the GameCube. And while there are a lot of options here, there are still some drawbacks. First and foremost, while you can select what area you want your wrestler's pyro to go off at, it still can't be timed exactly. It's usually triggered by a certain portion of the wrestler's taunt. Now, it's not a huge detail, but still, we want to customize to the fullest. The second and most annoying problem here is dealing with the long load times. Not the load times to get into the mode, but the load times once you're in the mode, like just to preview a motion. I mean, really? Just to preview what my wrestler's motion will look like, I have to wait this long? And you will have to wait for this every single time you want to preview something, but hey, I'll take it if it means more customization. The Create a Championship mode is back, and this time you can create tag titles. I really enjoy this mode, but it's just a shame that you have to spend your WWE cash to create a belt. Imagine if you had to spend cash for every wrestler you created. I just don't see why they did that. SmackDown vs. Raw 2006 is a fan favorite amongst wrestling game addicts. There are an incredible amount of game modes and match types here, more than what we've seen before. This game was sort of the end of an era. This would be the last game exclusive to Sony in the series, as the games that followed were released for the Xbox platform as well. With a packed roster and an entertaining season mode, you should definitely pick up SmackDown vs. Raw 2006, even if you just remotely like wrestling games. You won't be disappointed.
You're always trying to kiss up to the fans by talking up whoever they're... Oh my gosh! Look at this, JR! Here he comes!
Atomic leg drop. You talk about dropping a bomb on your opponent. That's exactly what that was.